Manx Radio's update with Lewis Foster.
Fastamai, good evening. It's 5 o'clock on Monday the 8th of July. Hope your week is off to a flying start. Welcome to your daily roundup of news on and from the Isle of Man today. Coming up over the next half hour, could the Isle of Man government breach its own climate laws? We hear from the Chief Minister, who says the target for reducing emissions by 2030 is becoming increasingly tight. What's happening in the top tiers of Manx care? And of course, the Southern 100 is getting underway shortly, so we'll take a look at what to expect from the Balaun course over the next few days. We'll also keep you posted on anything to watch out for travel-wise, and as ever, your thoughts are always welcome. Text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. First of all, let's join Chanel Suku for the Man Benham news headlines. Fastamai, Chanel.
Fastamai. Plans for a new sewage treatment works in Peel have been provisionally approved by the Planning Committee. Full planning approval will not be received until after a 3-week appeal window. Assuming no appeals are submitted, it is planned that construction will start in early autumn. Manx Care's latest financial figures show the healthcare provider is on course for a £18.7 million overspend this financial year. The predictions include £5 million of savings identified as part of a cost improvement programme. Paolo Nutini is to perform on the Isle of Man in just over 3 weeks' time. Tickets will go on sale at 9 a.m. this Wednesday. And a reminder, the roads around the Balaun course will close at 6:05 this evening as the Southern 100 road races gets underway. In international news, the UK Prime Minister has completed a tour of the devolved nations, meeting political leaders in Wales and Northern Ireland. Sir Keir Starmer says it's important to reset relations. Joe Biden's come out fighting, telling critics it's time to end speculation about whether he'll pull out of the US presidential race. He's written to top Democrats saying he's firmly committed to his re-election campaign. And just when we're told the cost of living crisis is easing, there's a warning the price of a brew could rise. Extreme weather in India is being blamed for a leap in the cost of tea. Those are your headlines. News at 6.
Gurmayed. Thank you, Chanel. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. Not quite extreme, but a beautiful day on the Isle of Man today, and fine and sunny this evening with light to moderate east or northeasterly breezes. The wind then freshening overnight as cloud increases. Minimum temperature 12 degrees. Wet and windy though tomorrow, rain quickly arriving early in the morning and this becoming heavy and persistent before easing later in the evening. Fresh to strong northeast winds easing later, temperatures 14 degrees in the rain. Cloudy on Wednesday with occasional outbreaks of light rain, moderate to fresh westerly winds and a highest temperature of 17 degrees. Sunset tonight is at 9:49 and sunrise tomorrow at 4:58.
Manx Glass and Glazing don't just do the big jobs. It's easy to repair broken greenhouse glass at Manx Glass and Glazing. For greenhouse glass cut to size, call 674 573.
If you run a small business or just need more room in the back, Philshaw Vehicles has the perfect van or light commercial for all your needs and can sort out any finance. Based in the Tremode estate, view philshawvehicles.im or call 49 51 49.
Your business can grow its market share 4 times faster. Be heard by over 43,000 island adults over 13 weeks. Call us on 682 600. Manx Radio is proud to support Manx businesses and communities.
SMS Trading, new and second-hand furniture, from flat pack to fully built. See our range at Unit 24, Gladstone Park, Ramsey. All island delivery and man in a van service available. Call SMS Trading on 315 151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
Visit Ramsey Craft Centre at Church Walk St Paul Square for beautiful yarns, fabrics, buttons, craft kits, patterns, in fact all you need for your craft works. Open Monday to Saturday. Visit Ramsey Craft Centre St Paul Square or find us on Facebook for opening times, news and offers.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And the time now 5:05, and that news from this afternoon. Plans for a new sewage treatment works in Peel have been provisionally approved by the Planning Committee. The move gives hope that the pumping of untreated sewage out to sea will come to an end. Well, I spoke to Chair of Manx Utilities, John Wannenberg, MHK, in the last hour to get his reaction.
Well, obviously it's step in the right direction as far as we're concerned. It's a long-held ambition that we can put this together for Peel and for Garth as well. And this is the next milestone we've achieved. And although it's got a 3-week window for any appeals, this is certainly a step in the right direction. And we're looking forward to cracking on with the job.
A 3-week window, as you mentioned, and assuming there is a smooth planning process, when are we looking to have the site up and running?
Spades in the ground, hopefully come October, autumn this year. And, if all things go as they should, I would imagine it would be completed probably the back end of 2026.
And by 2025, I understand screening will take place. Why is that important?
Well, without being too graphic, that will it removes all the hard solids away, and which will be transported down to Meriveg, and essentially it'll cease the discharge into the bay.
So even before that completion date of 2026, clean bathing water by 2025, by next year?
Well, that's the ambition, Lewis. That's the ambition, and the screening will take care of that, although the project itself will not be complete. But yes, that part of it will be in place prior to the end of the project.
It has been a long-running effort. What have you to say about the team behind the plans?
You're right. This has been a long time coming down the track, and I'm pleased for the team, because they've been working very hard on trying to get this going, and through no fault of their own, because we've had delays through lack of external resources, or we've had to have more complex investigation into the site. And for whatever reason, we haven't managed to get it going as quickly as we want, and certainly as quick as the people who live in Peel would like us to. But things have got to be done properly. And now that this planning's in place, we're looking forward to cracking on and delivering on behalf of all the people of Peel.
And then I suppose it will be all eyes on Garth. What's happening there?
It's a little bit behind Peel. There's still some land acquisition that we've got to complete on. But essentially, it's the same project, but just in Garth. And equally, those people have been deserving of this for a long time. And I can assure of them that the team's commitment to getting it over the line. But it's got to be done properly, and sometimes that takes time.
Manx Utilities Chair John Wannenberg there. You can find more on this story at manxradio.com. Now, the Isle of Man could fail to meet its first interim climate target, but the Chief Minister says will be very close if it is missed at all. Our reporter Christian Jones joins us now. Christian, firstly, you say this appears at odds with the government's legal obligations. Is that right?
Well, exactly. The law set out by the Council of Ministers sets out 3 legally binding targets. 2 of them are interim. The first states by 2030, the Isle of Man must have decarbonised by at least 35%. The plans to achieve that consist of decarbonising electricity, which makes up for the largest chunk of that figure, but also has other things like reducing emissions in transport, generating renewable energy by using existing buildings, among others. But ultimately, like you mentioned, this is a legal obligation to hit that target, and government cannot amend that target or push the date back or modify the percentage either. So it is set in stone that it's either 35% reduction or it isn't.
So that's an interesting thing to admit then, that government could break its own laws. The Chief Minister has been heard saying it's becoming increasingly tight to meet that first interim target too.
Yep, and that was at the British-Irish Council Summit, which saw a gathering of high-profile politicians from Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, the UK and, of course, the Crown dependencies. So it is particularly interesting that Alfred Cannon chose to disclose that at a press conference in front of the other leaders, presumably knowing it is written into law. But even though the CM has said even if the Isle of Man misses the 2030 target will be very close, if it's missed by a day, a week, month, year and so on, it's still been missed, which puts them in breach of its own laws. So I did ask Mr. Cannon, if that's the case, then what happens?
There's nothing in law to say there is any penalty attached to this. So effectively, it's a bit like Scotland has missed its latest climate change targets. It becomes effectively reputational damage, I suppose, of a government who set targets and not met those.
I did ask if he would consider missing the target as a serious failure and if he would reconsider his position as a result. He didn't seem keen to answer that, though, so it appears the only accountability that's set in stone is that reputational damage that he spoke about. But if we bring the Isle of Man Green Party into this now, its Secretary Andrew Langan-Newton, who is a qualified and practising advocate, thinks the government could be held to account in a court of law.
If there's a prospect of missing that deadline, we're seeing court claims across the world and in the UK where governments are being held to accountable to these legal deadlines. We might see the same in the Isle of Man court, because that's the role of the Isle of Man court. It's to hold the government accountable.
It's important to note that, yes, the Chief Minister has floated the idea of the island missing that target, but that is still 5.5 years away. And if a week is a long time in politics, then 5 or more years must be a lifetime. So there's still time, and perhaps by Alfred Cannon admitting this shows a level of honesty with the Manx public. However, what steps will need to be taken to make sure that 2030 target is met will of course remain unknown until closer to the time.
Christian Jones, thank you. The time now at 5:10. Manx Care's Executive Medical Director has left the organisation after just over 3 years in post. Dr Sriman Andol's departure comes after more than a year on secondment in the UK, as Sean Cowper reports.
Dr Andol was appointed ahead of the healthcare operator taking over the running of the island's health services in April 2021. But less than 2 years later, he was seconded to the University Hospitals of Derby and Burton, and later in 2023 moved to a Liverpool hospital to undertake clinical activities. Throughout his secondment, Dr Marina Hudson has carried out the role of Interim Medical Director for Manx Care, which resulted in questions in the House of Keys over the cost implications of having 2 medical directors.
The Minister is not acknowledging the fact that there is currently an Interim Medical Director, but a board structure states there is a substantive post holder. It also states actually that it's possible that they're working in a UK National Health Service Trust. Can the Minister advise what the cost of medical directors, the substantive post and the interim post is to the people of the island?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The question was about how many are on the payroll. I've answered that question, and I'm not getting into the discussion of individual employment contracts on the floor of this Honourable House.
Following this exchange, Manx Care confirmed to Manx Radio that Dr Andol remained on its payroll during his time in Liverpool, as his substantive employment remained with the board. During his secondment, Dr Andol remained Manx Care's suitable person for doctors' revalidation appraisals. That responsibility has now transferred to Dr Hudson, who will continue as Interim Medical Director. Meanwhile, Executive Director of Nursing and Deputy Chief Executive Paul Moore will leave next month after 3 years with the Healthcare Board. Manx Care says he's returning to the UK, with Sheila Lloyd taking his place as an interim later this month. A recruitment process to find permanent replacements for both roles will get underway in August.
Sean Cowper with that report there. Now let me know what you think about this next story. Do you think children should be allowed to have their own smartphones? And if so, when should they be allowed to have them? This conversation started by one mum in Ramsey, who's behind the Delay Smartphones IOM Facebook page. Megan Kennish has 2 children, and she told Manx Radio's Amy Griffiths that she's worried about the potential harm it could cause if they have access to the technology from a young age.
I want them to know what they love to do in real life before they fall in love with a screen. I want them to decide what they think is beautiful before they are upheld to beauty standards. I want them to be bored so they can be imaginative. I want them to play outside. I want them to be able to process their emotions with me before broadcasting them online. And I suppose if you flip that, I don't want them to see things that they can't unsee. And I don't want them to have access to the 24 hours of news cycle before they can process that properly. And I don't want them critically to be dependent.
Smartphones do seem to be so ingrained in our daily lives, and they can be hard to escape. And is it fair, I suppose, to ask children to give that up when, say, their friends are playing on their smartphones and talking to each other on their smartphones and they're missing out from those conversations?
Instead of asking, is it fair for them to have that taken away, I would ask, is it fair to give it to them in the first instance? And I think this is really the crux of why I'm here, is that if we all decide to take this action together, then that question of will they be the only one won't be a question anymore, because the majority of children, hopefully, their parents would have made the decision to not give them a smartphone.
Megan Kennish there. Well, one listener earlier today, Mick, messaged Manx Radio to say Manx Telecom and Sure could age-restrict mobile phones sold to children so that unsuitable material cannot be accessed online. We put that question to Manx Telecom, which said customers must be at least 18 years old to purchase a mobile contract. For those under 18, a parent or guardian typically takes out the contract on their behalf. Each mobile device includes built-in privacy management features designed to protect minors. For instance, Apple's family sharing requires approval for app downloads and allows certain functionalities to be locked. Manx Telecom says our fibre and broadband services also offer configurable routers to block inappropriate content. We encourage all Manx Telecom customers to visit the Tech Bench in our MT store for support or guidance where required. Parents are also advised to visit handset manufacturers' websites for additional information. Well, I wonder if you have used any of those measures or whether you think we should be restricting phone use at all. Text 166 177 if you can, or email studio@manxradio.com. Let us know.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
It's just gone 5:15. All appointments at Port Erin Dental Practice are cancelled until further notice following a fire at the premises last night. Siobhan Fletcher has the details.
The Isle of Man Fire and Rescue Service responded to the call shortly after 1 o'clock this morning. Crews from Rushen, Castletown and Douglas were mobilised to reports of the fire at a property in Orchard Road, Port Erin. On arrival, everyone was already out of the building, but flames were coming out of the windows on the ground floor and cylinders were exploding. Breathing apparatus teams were deployed to control and extinguish the fire within the ground floor and to check for fire spread in the other properties within the building. The call to the emergency services was made by an occupier who was alerted to the incident due to the smoke detector being activated. As a result of the incident, Manx Care has confirmed all appointments at Port Erin Dental Practice will be cancelled for the foreseeable future. In a statement, the healthcare provider said the practice are working closely with Manx Care and will keep patients updated accordingly. The practice will be in touch with their patients in due course with regards to their future appointments. Patients who require an emergency appointment for pain, bleeding or swelling should contact the Square Dental Practice on 621 440. The Isle of Man Fire and Rescue Service added, this incident highlights the importance of working smoke alarms. When there is a fire, smoke spreads fast. Working smoke alarms save lives. They give early warning in the case of fire, which can enable occupants to get out of the property in the early stages of a fire, which in turn allows us to get to you more quickly. Manx Radio has contacted Manx Care for further comment on the provision of future appointments for patients affected.
Gromide, thank you, Siobhan. Let's go over to the business news now. And in September, a group of volunteers from Capital International are heading back to the Huruma Orphanage in Tanzania to continue work it started last year to improve the facilities, the environment and the future for the children there. Beforehand, though, the team is getting involved in some fundraising challenges and activities. One member, Adi Collister, has set himself an extreme physical challenge, climbing the height of Kilimanjaro in one day on Snaefell. So for context, Kilimanjaro is 19,341 feet high. The bungalow to summit of Snaefell is approximately 610 feet of climbing. So the challenge will involve a minimum of 32 ascents of Snaefell. Yeah, easy. Distance covered will be in excess of 50 miles. That's on the 27th of July. So wishing the very best of luck and weather for AD and all the team from Capital International. The latest stock market report now brought to you by Ramsey Crookall, and London stocks showed mixed performance today, mirroring trends across Europe as investors considered the implications of a hung parliament in France. The political deadlock followed the second round of national elections, where the left-wing alliance unexpectedly took first place, yet no single group secured an outright majority. In the US, Wall Street stocks opened higher today, with investors gearing up for the start of the Q2 corporate earnings season. Market participants were particularly focused on the upcoming earnings reports from major US banks, along with quarterly results from companies like JP Morgan, Chase and Delta Airlines. June's Consumer Price Index, scheduled for release on Thursday, and the previous month's Producer Price Index on Friday are also expected to attract significant investor attention. Oil prices fell today after 4 consecutive weeks of gains, influenced by the potential ceasefire deal in Gaza, which eased Middle East tensions and concerns about possible disruptions to US energy supplies from Hurricane Beryl. The oil price is currently down 0.86% at $86.08 per barrel. Gold prices also declined today as investors took profits from bullion's rise to a more than 1 month high in the previous session, driven by increasing expectations of US interest rate cuts in September. Gold prices down 0.92% to $2,369. At the close, the FTSE 100 down 0.08% at 8,197. The DAX down 0.06% to 18,487. A short time ago, the Dow Jones up 0.32% to 39,500 and the S&P 500 up 0.10% to 5,572 and the Nasdaq up 0.17% to 18,383.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
3:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
Oh.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, the main thing to know tonight, of course, the Southern 100 starts and the Blount circuit will be closed from 6:05 until 20 to 10 tonight. At Farm Hill until the 4th. Temporary lights on Vicarage Road at the Stevenson Way roundabout, 24 hours a day for water main replacement. In Laxey until the 26th, temporary lights on the Coast Road between Laxey and Doon, 24 hours a day for work on the pavements there. In Laxey until the 30th of November, temporary lights on Ramsey Road at the Minorca Hill Junction, 24 hours a day for 3 separate phases of drainage installation. In Laxey as well until the 18th of August, temporary lights on Pinfold Hill near the turn for Lonnon Church Road, 24 hours a day for work on the pavements there. Up in Ramsey until the 11th, temporary lights on May Hill near the Seamount Road turn, 24 hours a day again for gas main repairs. And north of Knocksharry until the 9th, that's tomorrow, temporary lights on the Coast Road at the Ballabooey Road Junction, 24 hours a day for water main connection. Over at the airport, the 420 Aer Lingus flight was delayed, hopefully away now, otherwise flights okay and on time. And the sailings Manannan due to arrive into the new Liverpool ferry terminal in around half an hour's time.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with
Quayside. Going back to the roads now, as a number of busy routes on the island will close over the next few days as part of a road maintenance programme. Surface dressing, where chippings are added to the top of the road's surface in a bid to prolong its life, is being carried out on several major routes, as Sean Cowper reports.
Tomorrow, Shaw Road in Gansey, Vicarage Road in Douglas and Whitebridge Road in Onchan will all close between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m, while South Quay in Douglas shuts after 6 p.m. On Wednesday, there'll be daytime closures on the Shoulder Road and Patrick Road, while Thursday sees the Sotfell Road at Brandywell and the Andreas Road close. Portown Road in the west of the island and Blackberry Lane in Onchan close on Friday. This week's closures are all to allow the surface layer of the roads to be prepared for surface dressing, with further closures to follow later in the month.
Sean Galper, thank you. The freehold of one of the island's first retirement complexes has been sold. Saddle Mews in Douglas is now in the ownership of the Saddle Mews Residents Association Limited. Tessa Hawley reports.
The 122 apartments had been in the care of a UK-based management company called Four Seasons Healthcare for almost 20 years. The deal was completed on the 1st of July, with island-based accountants Yellowstone advising on it. In a statement, the company said the good work of the association to date has seen various works take place to improve the lives of the residents. We were proud to play our part in the purchase, which will see the funds generated by the freehold channeled towards improving the whole estate. The village, which is for those aged 50 and over, will now be managed by its residents. The sale concludes a 6-year process for the association, which wanted more involvement in the running of the site. Douglas South MHK Sarah Maltby has described the deal as welcome news. She added, "My main concern was making sure my constituents were being treated fairly and getting the service they expected from their management fees. I now have the confidence this will happen, and I'm pleased to have played a part in securing this arrangement." The Saddlemews Residents Association was approached by Four Seasons Healthcare in 2023 with the proposal of purchasing the village freehold. The Four Seasons Healthcare Group has since appointed a property agent to oversee an auction of its remaining 46 freehold sites in the coming months. Chief Executive Officer Joe O'Connor said the launch of that sales process reflects the significant operational and financial performance that these homes have achieved. And you can find more on this story at manxradio.com.
Well, we've mentioned the start of the Southern 100 tonight, and we can head down now to Cross Four Ways with a look at the sporting news today from Rob Pritchard. Fast am I, Rob?
Yes, Fast am I. Good evening, Lewis. Well, yes, you do indeed join us at the 4.25 mile Colas Balaun course, where in the next hour the 2024 Southern 100 road races are due to get underway. Tonight's opening qualifying session of this year's meeting will see roads around the course close at 6:05 p.m. First out will be the newcomers just before 6:20 p.m. on their familiarisation lap, before qualifying slots take place for all the solo classes up until just after 8:45 p.m. This evening's action is then due to conclude with sidecar qualifying just before 8:55 p.m. before roads around the course reopen no later than 9:40 p.m. All timings are, of course, subject to change, potentially at short notice. Well, elsewhere, Manx boxer Matthew Rennie has maintained his unbeaten professional record following a comprehensive points win over Mikhailo Sovtus in Liverpool at the weekend. Magic Rennie took victory over his Ukrainian opponent 60 points to 54 at Grand Central Hall in Liverpool on Saturday. It sees the Ireland-born fighter extend his undefeated tally in the pro ranks to 13 wins and 1 draw, and this was Rennie's first win since linking up with new coach Terry Spencer. In cycling, well, even though it's a rest day for Mark Cavendish and the Tour de France, elsewhere a great day for the Isle of Man's Lizzie Holden on stage 2 of the Giro d'Italia women this afternoon. She and UAE team ADQ helped their sprinter Chiara Consoni to victory in Volta Mantovana. Elsewhere, fellow Ireland competitor Becky Storey and team DSM Firmenich Post NL managed to get riders Franziska Koch and Juliette Labousse inside the top 20. And finally, this week we'll see 20 golfers fighting for supremacy going into the knockout phases of this year's Isle of Man Golf Championships at Mount Murray Golf Club. 16 men's players and 4 female competitors formed the lineup following the qualifying stage held across Saturday and Sunday. In the mix will be defending men's and women's champions Robert Noon and Kaylee Dawson, who are both targeting 3rd successive titles. Among those joining Noon in the men's match play stage will be Darryl Collister, James Arneal and Liam Cowan. And in the women's competition, Dawson will be joined in the semi-finals by Emma Noon, Shirley Price and Diane Neal.
Guramayed, thank you, Rob Pritchard. I hope you've got your sunscreen. That's it from Update for today. Do remember you can contact us in the Manx Radio newsroom anytime by email. It's newsroom@manxradio.com. And as always, there's much more on tonight's stories on the Manx Radio website, including interviews in full in the newscast section. Coming up next, it's Agenda with Phil Gorn, and after 6, it's Greatest Hits with Simon Clark. Update will be back at 5 o'clock tomorrow. Have a great evening.